Millions of people are familiar with their music, but few will know the names of those responsible for the hypnotic melodies we hear while we're on hold with the company. Presenting the rise, fall, then rise again of On Hold Music's most prolific artists, the Comfort Tones, led by the legendary On Hold songwriting duo of Robbie Winter and Xavier Moon. This week on Behind the Music. Being put on hold when you're trying to reach any company is an unfortunate part of being a customer in the 21st century. But in the early days of the telephone, callers were forced to hear dead air whenever they were placed on hold. Then, in 1966, an individual by the name of Alfred Levy, a factory owner, discovered the potential of on-hold music when an exposed wire in his telephone system accidentally picked up a radio broadcast. The telephone on-hold music genre was born.
Ever since I was a young lad, I wanted to write pleasant melodies to be heard on the telephone.
It was 1963, I believe, when I first met Robbie. I was surprised to find someone as passionate about telephone music as I was.
Yeah, we didn't have much of an audience back then. Back in the early 60s, we were like way ahead of our time, I guess.
Back then, all the kids listened to was rock.
Or roll.
Yeah, you either listened to rock or roll back then, and so when they had the brilliant idea to package the two together as rock and roll, it really took off.
It was bad news for a band like us that specializes in repetitive, tedious music.
Yeah, so things were tough for us back in the beginning. And then around 65, 66, businesses began to realize that silence was the death knell during phone calls. And so people started to take notice of the work that we were doing with on-hold music. And so Robbie and Xavier started experimenting with hypnotic and melodic music that truly said, "Please don't hang up."
Our music back then was a jazzy reflection of the times.
I remember the first time I heard one of our tunes while I was waiting on hold with a call with the gas company. And it was mind-blowing. I mean, it was then that I knew that we had made it.
The offers started rolling in, and we were very busy.
The sudden success caught the Comfort Tones off guard. The young artists were living fast and playing hard. It was all a blur, really, from the late 60s and all throughout the 70s, and we didn't notice how drastically the industry was changing, how drastically technology was changing. And I think once we realized it, it was too late, and I think it caused us to go against our instincts, and we took things in the wrong direction as a result. In the late 80s, the group paired up with the legendary voice of Rick, Your Call Is Important to Us, Torres.
Thank you for holding. Your call is important to us. Please stay on the line.
Yeah, the phones were evolving and you now had the ability to press 9 to speak with a representative and stuff like that. And so adding Rick at that time really got us back on track, and things were really going well for us at that point.
It was around this time that we won our first Marcy Award.
In 1989, the On-Hold Messaging Association of America awarded the Comfort Tones the coveted Marcy Award. It seemed as if the Comfort Tones had the world by the tail, but under the surface, things were falling apart. Soon after winning our first Marcy, Rick announced that he was leaving the band.
He left and became Mr. Movie Phone.
Yeah, so that was a big blow. The 90s were especially rough on the band as corporate cost-cutting and new technology resulted in automated systems which greatly reduced the demand for on-hold music. The lack of work caused friction to build between Robbie and Xavier, and a new presence in the studio only added to these tensions. Robbie began seeing an avant-garde elevator music artist by the name of Odge. And he really became obsessed with her and immersed into that whole elevator music scene, or Muzak as it's known on the streets.
Music consumed my life back then. There were days where Aj and I would enter into an elevator in the morning to just absorb the music. And we go up and down and up and down. And before we knew it, a week had passed.
You know, I mean, we all had our Muzak phase in college or whatever, but for Robbie, it went far beyond that. And he was writing some very strange Muzak back then, and I wanted no part of that. We pretty much drifted apart from there and went our separate ways. Finally, in 2003, Robbie checked himself into the Betty Ford Center, a rehab clinic that had no elevators, and cut ties with Aj. I had been working on solo projects here and there, and I was still passionate about small compositions, and I had composed some small one-line jingles for commercials, you know, things like "Buy Menon" and "Hot Pockets" became very popular. And so I also wrote a jingle for Intel. The pay wasn't bad, but it wasn't my calling as a composer. Public frustrations regarding being on hold were building as it became more and more difficult to get a live person through automated systems. Then, in 2017, Consumer Reports published an article reporting that being on hold was America's second greatest annoyance after hidden fees, but beating out inaccurate weather forecasts and dog poop. Yeah, there were a lot of questions regarding whether or not Robbie and I would ever reunite and write on hold music again. And then, quite suddenly, out of the blue, he calls me and says,
I need money. Let's write songs again.
The Comfort Tones reunited and began writing music once again. And this time, Robbie had an idea that would come to define them as artists.
I thought we should customize our tunes for specific industries, like a funeral home wouldn't have upbeat music playing on hold for their business. And at one point we were approached by an insurance company, and they challenged us to create music that told people, God, I'm so sorry you have to wait on hold for such a long time. It was life-changing for us.
The result was the group's strongest work to date. And increased on-hold times created by employee shortages of the COVID era brought them even more popularity. Now, more than ever before, thousands of captive listeners were hearing our music for hours and hours on end, and actually caused our music to chart on Billboard 100. This firmly established the Comfort Tones as the #1 on-hold music artists of all time.
Yeah, people work hard, and when they listen to our music, I want them to understand that we know how hard they work and that they are appreciated. If our music makes them feel a little better while they have to wait, then I feel like we've made the difference.
I mean, everyone knows that being on hold is a necessary evil. Companies don't want to put people on hold, obviously, but, sometimes it's unavoidable. And if our music can help pass the time and ease the pain a bit, especially if it makes me a lot of money, then yeah, that makes me happy. In an era where you can now have the option to have your call returned in the order in which it was received, perhaps the days of on-hold music are numbered. So the next time you find yourself frustrated and having to wait on hold, try to sit back, relax, and enjoy the music while you can.
I thought I asked for green Skittles. Where are my green Skittles? Can I just get some green Skittles?